Greetings everyone and welcome to the latest edition of the Mobile IT Community of Interest monthly meeting. Thank you very much for joining us today. Before we get started, I would like to review how to use the GoToWebinar system in order to optimize your experience today. Let me briefly explain how you can interact during these monthly meetings using the GoToWebinar system. Everybody is on default mute settings due to lots of participants on the call. However, you can get the audio over the telephone or the speakers of your computer to improve the sound quality if needed. By the way, the panel is set to hide automatically. Please use the orange arrow to show or hide the control panel at your own will. You can change this setting on the view menu at the top of the panel. You are encouraged to please forward any questions that come up during the using the questions tab throughout the presentation. We could identify who is asking the questions in order to foster participation and interaction between attendees. If you'd like to remain anonymous, just say so. We also have a live poll session, which you're able to answer from the screen by clicking on the choices provided. And finally, at the end of the meeting, we'll have a follow-up survey section. Please respond to these questions if you can, so that we can incorporate your feedback into the work of the community. We will now start the presentation. I'm Stuart Young. I represent FearTech in Europe and the Middle East and Comet in the UK. On behalf of all of us at FearTech and Comet, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the Mobile IT Community of Interest monthly meeting. Today's presenter is Chris Hurst, who will discuss the utilisation of geographic information systems and public information feeds to support security of field personnel. Before we get started with the presentation, I'd like to take a minute or two to introduce this community of interest to those who are not familiar with either organisation or are new participants to the community. The objective of the community is to showcase the mobility solutions that will be adopted in the capital projects industry. We strive to achieve this goal by presenting the latest cases of mobile IT adoption and also by allowing the breadth of the community participants to expose their perspective on these technology applications. We have been delivering use cases and industry perspectives through various channels, including these monthly meetings, both virtual and live discussions, documentation reports from these gatherings, and also by facilitating the creation of research and development projects within both organisations. Furthermore, this community is a joint effort between FearTech and Comet. FearTech is a member-based organisation with the objective of improving the productivity of the capital projects industry through the deployment of technology. The goal is to improve productivity in the capital project sector through the adequate leadership in global development and adoption of innovative practices. Comet is a UK-based organisation whose principal aim is to learn from experience and deliver measurable business benefits in terms of adoption of mobile technologies. As such, this partnership supports the work and objectives of the community. The community is 18 months old. Throughout the past year, we've had more than 1,390 participants from over 400 organisations located in 42 countries around the world. Mainly participants are located in North America and Europe, and as we continue to expand into the Middle East and Far East, we're also embracing South America too. We're very glad with the industry's response so far, and we're continuously working to meet the needs of our participants. We have a few announcements to make during this meeting. The first one is the FearTech Leadership Forum, which is coming up later. It's coming up next month. One of the main components of this event revolves around organisations' readiness for change. The objective is to provide the foundation for accelerating innovation adoption in a systematic fashion. To such purpose, we've released a survey that will help us understand the current state of the industry in terms of change readiness and integrate this into the work of FearTech. Specifically, we want to look at the attributes of leadership and advancement that serve as indicators of change readiness. We've determined that change readiness will improve the likelihood of innovation adoption by up to 50%. The approach allows a systematic elevation and awareness of innovation adoption barriers. Recognising, understanding and overcoming these barriers is critical to advancing productivity in the industry. We will include the survey when the video of the meeting is made available later. Mentioned about the Leadership Forum, the other announcement is the Efficiency Through Digital Projects 2015 conference in London. I wanted to share that with you. It is on November the 10th and 11th in London. The agenda has been published and you'll find it on the website, the address on the screen. Please do take a look. Now let's move on to our main presentation. Chris will explain to us how to enhance situational awareness for security managers. Prior to Stabilitas, Chris spent most of the prior decade working abroad. He was Enterprise Risk Manager at Mercy Corps, a large humanitarian organisation with emphasis in Congo and Indonesia. Development consultant in South Sudan, infrastructure planning project manager in support of US, NATO and host nation forces, Army Operations Officer in Central Command, Kuwait, Egypt, and an Army diver. Chris is the co-founder of Stabilitas with two fellow Army veterans. He started Stabilitas to serve organisations for social impact goals. In particular, he is passionate about attacking the big problems constraining economic development, like insecurity. Chris, I'll pass it over to you now.
Thanks so much, Stuart. Let me see if I can share my screen. I'm waiting for the handoff here. There it is. Let's see. And hopefully you can see my screen. Stuart, can you see it?
I can. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you so much for the introduction. As Stuart said, my name is Chris, and it's a real honor to speak with you today. As an outline, I'll give you about a 5-minute presentation, a 5-minute demonstration, and 5 minutes of initial results and sort of mini case studies, and then I'll leave the remainder of time for question. My purpose today is to provide training on the ways that mobile technology and cloud-based data can help us operate more safely around the world. And by safety, I'm really speaking primarily today about understanding the physical environment around us. Before I begin, I'd like to tell you briefly about our team because I think it gives a sense of why we do what we do, why we're attacking this problem. On the left is Greg. I'm in the middle. Greg and Stephen is on the right. Greg, Stephen, and I started Stabilitas about a year ago. Greg and I attended West Point together. He went on to become a Special Forces team leader. And as Stuart said, I served as an Army diver. And Stephen, our CTO, is an operations officer in a reconnaissance squadron. But all of us faced a similar problem, whether it was as Army officers or civilian project managers or risk managers. We found that getting granular real-time information about safety and security was nearly impossible, but really important. And let me give you an example. From 2006 to 2010, I led an infrastructure master planners planning team at C.H. Hill, which is a large engineering firm. And whether it's for Iraq, Afghanistan, or even Latin America, I knew we had incredible capabilities to perform work for important clients like governments, but I really struggled with whether or not to deploy my team somewhere. And we had great access to risk services, but it never felt granular or real-time or delivered to the traveler when needed. Now, in the military, we began addressing this challenge really over the last decade with something called Blue Force Tracker. And with Blue Force Tracker on my screen, you can see forces in blue. That's friendly forces. We're in a convoy. But what made Blue Force Tracker really innovative was the interaction of risk information along with people's real-time locations. And so you could see the overlap of people and real-time along with risk information. And the second really powerful innovation about this tool was the way that the military sourced the information, with risk being pushed down from headquarters, but also enabling every soldier to add to the map. Every remote team could see incidents and contribute to the collective intelligence of the team. So it's not just the military that faces risks like this. Businesses, nonprofits, universities also face the risk of storms, natural disasters, earthquakes, and kidnappings. But as a business leader, I didn't have the same tools I had in the military. And I'll give you an example about one of our partners to demonstrate this. This is Jay. He's a security manager for a large engineering firm. He's got 10,000 travelers traveling the world every week. His job is very stressful. Last year, we were on the phone with him when an earthquake hit in Mexico, and Jay set to work trying to hunt down their employees by their itineraries. And you can imagine the challenges there. Three challenges really made this difficult. One, local employees or airlines weren't synchronized with the system. Two, flight plans often changed. And three, even if itineraries were mapped directly, Jay's tools didn't tell him whether or not people were really affected. And so now, if you just put yourself in the shoes of the employee, right? Imagine what you're feeling. There's been an earthquake. You're in Mexico. You're apart from familiar settings or support mechanisms. You don't know whether your teammates are okay or not. You don't know where they are, and you feel kind of alone. So what Stabilitas did is we put risk information and employee locations all on the same map while protecting privacy, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So on the left, we've got a smartphone with employee locations and risk, and on the right, we have a security manager's portal. Now, let me talk about where we source risk information from, and then I'll provide a demonstration. We get our information from three sources. At the top on the left, we have what we in the military called open sources. So newspaper articles or social media incidents reported online that relate to safety or security using keyword searches and natural language processing. But we also enable experts in the network like Jay to add incidents directly to the map and to confirm or validate incidents, as well as employees on the ground. To the last example, last summer I was in the Congo and a border guard asked my female colleague for a sexual favor. And I really wanted a way to report this guy, but I didn't have the tools to do that at the time. And so that's part of the motivation for building Stabilitas is you can imagine this guy's there all the time harassing women who don't know to avoid him. So from here, let me transition to my demonstration. Hopefully on the left you can see a web browser, and on the right you can see my smartphone. Let me move my control panel out of the way here. So I'm going to cover three functions of the application. First is teammate views. So I'll imagine that we're the security manager first. Excuse me, I'm going to drill in. I can see Greg Adams. This is here in GA. His phone reported 8 minutes ago. I know that Greg's actually been traveling over the last day, and this is real life, to Oregon. So I'm going to go look at his location here, and look at his history. So you can see these sort of gray incidents, gray markers marking Greg's route. I can see his battery life. I could see his accuracy. I could send him an individual message. I could ask him to check in. Let me now go to my own location. I'm actually operating with Stephen at the moment, and our privacy features are turned on. So though Steve and I are in the same location, our appearances are actually obscured a bit unless there's an emergency, which is really cool. So here I have my teammates, and I can see that they're okay. Their phones are operating, and they're in the areas where they should be. Let me now transition to our second real function around this, which is team communications. So perhaps I've found out that there's been a shooting in Paris. Maybe it's the Charlie Hebdo incident. And here I have my teammates, which are easily configurable. And so maybe I want to send a note to just the Stabilitas members in the scenario operating abroad, so I can do that. Maybe it's avoid downtown Paris. This message goes to all employees over their smartphone, all employees on the team. So you could see on my smartphone that I just received a message. And maybe you'd like for employees on the ground to check in, so we can ask for the same thing. So I just click the check here to ask for check-in. Now imagine that I'm a mobile employee. I'm going to open the smartphone. In my home screen here, I have my teammates and their distance from me. We open this home screen for data saving purposes. I can check out the map and again see the locations of my teammates. I can ask for help. So maybe if there's been an incident and I need help, you probably saw my my text message sent out to all my teammates saying I've sent an emergency alert, and also this bell turned red saying Chris is in trouble. Notably, my teammates have begun checking in. This is real time, right? So 7:11, 7:15 where I am. I haven't checked in. Let me go ahead and check in to let everyone know I'm okay. And I've done that. So here, But this helps me as a security manager now know whether or not I need to check on Stephen, for example. The third and most interesting part of the application, in my opinion, is the risk information. And we are taking on a monumental task here, but it's incredibly exciting. These are my risk filters, and I'm going to begin turning them on piece by piece so that you can kind of get a sense of the scope of what's possible here. I'm going to go to Turkey and just sort of look and see what we have here. So I've just turned on OSAC feeds and natural disasters. OSAC stands for Overseas Security Advisory Council, and I can see here that citizens in Athens are warned about a demonstration and labor strike. I can get more information about this and the exact location. And let's check out this State Department message again from OSAC. Security message for U.S. citizens, increased threat level due to PKK anniversary and recent events. I can also create a geofence around this area, so if I had employees in the area, if they cross over this boundary, they can get a message here, right, delivered to their phone. This means that they can operate and do their job without having to worry all the time about about checking the news constantly for updated incidents. We can help tell you that. I also have an earthquake here that's been reported. It looks like magnitude 4.2, so probably not anything I need to worry about. But it shows the capability of another type of risk, which is natural disasters or storms or weather. I'm now going to turn on all information, and as I zoom out here, you'll see many circles with numbers of incidents in it. And so this is a really powerful tool that we're continuing to filter and develop and develop. So now I'm in Mexico. Let me check here and see what's going on. A gunman kills a drug boss journalist at a Mexican bar. I can click on the incident for more information. So this is a newspaper article that's been mapped automatically to the map, and it looks like there's been a shooting in this state, in Veracruz, with a particular bar in Orizaba. So I'll conclude with the demonstration and then head back to a couple case studies before taking questions. The point I want to leave you with is that every employee has the same information and access to teammates and the ability to ask for help that security managers do. So we really focus a lot on the traveling employee's experience, which as a prior employee, an engineer, a humanitarian, this was very important to me. So now let me conclude, as I said, with 4 very mini case studies. This summer, a university security manager had just sent medical students to Kampala, Uganda, and this appeared in her inbox. Imagine, what would you do? Here we have the Ugandan government confirming a threat from Al-Shabaab happening right where her students' itinerary says that they just flew in. Do you wake up the boss? What do you do? So in this case, she had just started a pilot with Stabilitas, and she could see in real time that her students were well outside of the danger area. And so this is what she said to us. Thanks to the app, we were able to report where everyone was and communicate to the university executive, and this meant that everyone felt in control and no plans were disrupted. I'll transition to another mini case study. This one is from Mexico. In Mexico, there's a group of firms that form an organization called ANTAD, and they meet periodically. And one of their functions is to share information about security. But today, they do this with spreadsheets. So the information sharing is slow, and the delivery to employees is slow, or maybe even non-existent. And we found that employees had actually been kidnapped, though fortunately it was express kidnapping, so they were eventually released. But they were kidnapped in areas where they didn't know there was an elevated risk. They didn't know that there was a known pattern. And there was no good way to deliver this information to employees. And so in starting this relationship with UNTAD, the the general counsel for a Mexican branch of a Fortune 500 firm said this about us: "You guys are onto something. If you can help us better collect and visualize data about security here, we'll be able to keep our staff better informed about where to go and not to go to better allocate security resources, and eventually to show the government patterns of insecurity to hold them more accountable." And so this gives us a sense of this network effect with information sharing across organizations in this kind of larger social impact goal. A third, one of our findings from the summer is that our partners are thinking of our tools not just for working abroad, but also for incidents in the U.S. So we had the security manager of a large government lab say this about us: that this isn't just for travelers abroad, that he was concerned about his employees and finding them after there was a disruption in D.C. In the subway system. One final mini case study, and I'll conclude here. A couple years ago, John, who's a senior engineer at a firm that I worked about, pulled me aside and said, "Chris, I don't feel safe taking on this engineering mission to the Congo." Now, he was seeing images like those on the left from his research online. But in reality, the work site looked exactly like the photo on the right, which was less than 10 miles away. So by the time of our project, the violence associated with the first image was completely out of date. And this hits on our real goal. Our mission is to encourage people to work abroad with greater confidence, with greater situational awareness, and with greater safety. And so knowing what they need to stay safe, the ability to ask for help quickly when needed, we think are critical requirements. So I'll end there with the presentation and look forward to your questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, brilliant presentation. Thank you very much. I think we've got quite a few questions that have come in during that, which I'll read to you after the pause. We've got the poll questions first. So I will ask the first one here. Okay, everybody should be able to see that now. Do you use tools today to see the locations of your employees? And we've got 5 multi-choice questions there. Can you all make your choices? Thank you. We'll just give that another couple of seconds. Okay, I'll close that one out and share the results. So, Chris, what do you make of that?
Interesting. I'm a little bit surprised that it's 100% no. My sense is that organizations like engineering firms or like the members of FIATech are beginning to use more mobile tracking, particularly from the itineraries. My bet is that this is happening more than people realize.
Sure. Okay, question number 2. Do you purchase risk information today? 4 questions, 4 areas to respond. Just give that another few seconds. Okay, share that one. 20% yes, 80% no. Thoughts on that one, Chris?
Again, I thought it would be a little bit higher, but it could also be a situation of where organizations are operating.
Okay, thank you. And thanks everybody for that one. So the next one we've got here, I'll just launch that one. What has been your experience with services that integrate real-world data, such as security, with employee and project info? Couple of seconds. Okay, we'll close that one out. What do you think of that then, Chris?
You know, so the two challenges here with not being specific or not up to date are exactly why we started Stabilitas. And my sense is that there's a great need. That the reason that there's no experience is the middle questions.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all of the poll questions we've got. Thank you very much for everybody's participation in that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question, the next slide now. Bear with me a second. Okay, we've got a series of questions that I'm going to go through now. This one comes in from Jeff Braun. Thanks, Jeff. The solution seems very good for a global scale. Can it be used at a more micro level, like that of a job site? Chris?
Absolutely. The GPS on your phone is generally very accurate, often to within 3 to 5 meters. So if that accuracy is good enough for you, and if there's Wi-Fi, by the way, it can be even better, this can be very micro.
Brilliant, brilliant. I hope that answers the question, Jeff. I've got a few more questions here, which I'll just start off with the first one I've got is, can you help us understand your approach to privacy? Chris, what do you think on that one?
It's a great question, and I may not have covered it as well. I think when I gave my presentation, I demonstrated that Stephen and I were at the same location, but our locations were actually obscured. What it didn't show you, which is really cool, is that if I press the emergency button, or when I press the emergency button, my obscuration on my location goes away immediately. And so the security manager can see exactly where the employee is. So we feel like this is a great, not just balance, but really optimizing both security and privacy.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question I've got here is, liking the idea of sharing information about context, but how else could the tool be useful?
It's a good question. I focus today's discussion about safety and security and sort of understanding the physical context around you. But what I didn't show is that on the mobile phone you can add all sorts of incidents or notes, whatever you'd like. And so, as an example, I used to work with an organization that put in wells in the Sudan, and the local manager left, and the U.S. government actually asked, "Where are those wells that we put in?" And so the organization was really scrambling, trying to find out where the wells were. Well, this, in a sense, is really GIS for every employee. So every employee could add the location of the well or the project site, whatever. And so this adds excellent coordination tools in addition to the security context.
Thank you. Next question I've got here is the application data intensive?
That's a really good question as well. We get this a lot. It's a good question. So we've worked really hard to be data light in a sense. So you may have noticed when I opened the application, I didn't even pull in the map information. I just had the locations of my teammates. And so in a given month, the typical user uses about 2 megabytes of data. Okay,
thanks for that one. The next question I've got here is the application battery intensive?
So in addition to the data question, this is probably the top 2 questions. Is, well, what's the impact on my battery? And we've been studying this pretty intently over the last several months, and we believe that for standard use, it's about 10 to 12%. So let's say the battery on your iPhone or smartphone normally lasts 10 hours. If Stabilitas is running continuously, it should run about 9 hours. So we feel like this is mostly not noticeable for most users.
Right, thank you, Chris. One more question I've got here is, how do you control the incident/stroke risk information uploaded by ground operatives, and how is it processed? Great
question. Our eventual goal is to enable a network of information sharing. The key step in this is you have to have some filtering so that someone doesn't just put whatever. And so the question is how. And what we've decided is that security managers at firms are often great checks on figuring out what to share or not to share. They have this role with OSAC today, the State Department organization, and if we make it very, very easy for them to share outside the firm, we think that would be really effective.
Great, thank you very much for those questions. I don't think there's any more. No, there's nothing else come in. Thanks very much for answering those, and thanks very much for the presentation. I'll just finish off now. We're just about time up, so I'll just go on to the next slide. Well, continuing the conversation is to go through social media. Join the community on LinkedIn for all announcements and follow-up discussions. We will also upload the recording from today to tie in with all the other recordings. I would like to invite you to look at both websites. There's lots of information in there. We've got the survey that I mentioned at the beginning for change readiness. We've also got the mobile IT community survey. The information that you give to that has been extremely useful in shaping and defining what we do in the community. We've included quite a lot of some of the suggestions and proposals that came forward. I get asked the continual question, can we look at the past sessions that we've had on mobile IT? Yes, you can. You can find them through YouTube, which if they don't come first time, go to the FearTech website and have a look in there. So thanks to everybody for coming on and spending time with us today. Thanks for the questions that came in. And thanks very much to Chris for the presentation. Chris, is there a final thing you want to say before we finish?
Yeah, I just finished with our mission again. Our mission is to make every employee and student of nonprofits, universities, and firms feel more confident about operating abroad. This is close to our own hearts and sense of mission, and I look forward to any questions after the call. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again, Chris. One more question, or it's a statement actually that's come from Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff Braun from Atlas RFID. Great presentation, very cool solution, very applicable to our industry. Well, thanks for your kind words, Jeff. And thanks to everybody. Thanks to Fernando for the efforts you've put in for this session, as with all the others. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Bye for now.